AIR4arts is a nonprofit organization dedicated to creatives, artists, and innovators. We strive to provide a platform that supports educational, inspirational, and supportive programs for our community to enjoy and be inspired by. Through our digital platform and community events, we help emerging creatives and seasoned innovators share the fruits of their efforts. Join us as we take you on an inspirational journey through the arts to spark your imagination.
My name is David Nethery, and I'm president of AIR4arts. Welcome to this episode of Airtime, which is now in its 11th season. David Fischer has been a longtime host of Airtime. And David, we want to congratulate you on your new position as Director of Cultural Arts for the City of Garland. And David, we have brought you a wonderful guest today, and I'm going to let Susan Morrow, who is the Executive Director of AIR4arts, introduce him. Susan?
Thank you, David. My pleasure today to introduce Tony Hurtado. He is entrepreneur, he is technology, he's telecommunications, but he's so much more. I've known him for a long time in various capacities, and one of the most fascinating is his sense of creativity and his definition as well. I am proud to call him friend, and we are also proud to have him on the board of AIR4arts.
Yes.
David? Tony?
Thank you, David and Susan, and welcome everyone to Airtime. And everyone, please welcome Tony. I'm fascinated to hear what you have to say, and really looking forward to hearing more about your current project that you're working with AIR4arts. So usually on Airtime, we feature artists or other people who would identify themselves as creatives, whether they're an artist or a cook or a guitar maker or a poet or a storyteller or a mixologist. But you don't describe yourself like that. But yet you have been and continue to be very involved in making the arts and artists thrive. So tell us a little bit about your background and what is it that draws you to the arts and the arts right now?
Yes, well, thank you, David. Yeah, early on, I think I discovered that, my talents on the creative side didn't quite compete with others that were just more naturally gifted. But I did appreciate just how extremely talented they were and how exciting it would be to, have those kinds of skills. Mine were more on the technical side, math, science, engineering, that sort of thing. But I will say that all along my career, even though I've been more on technical engineering and technical business areas, I've appreciated creativity and innovation.
So are you saying that creative people work differently than people who are in science and math?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I think one of the great things about creative people is they tend to push the limits, think outside the box, take a different approach. It's not so much about what's been done before and how do we replicate it. It's maybe what's been done before and how do we do something different and more interesting. And that's what leads to that, not only creative thinking, but real breakthrough and innovative thinking that makes a difference for us to advance. So
I know you've been heavily, and you mentioned science, engineering, and math. I guess you left out the team, but you've been very involved in the STEM movement. First of all, I guess, can you give us an overview of what STEM is and how you've worked with it over your career?
Sure. Well, in my career, I've been involved in a number of areas, marketing, but also community relations. And there, I was involved in corporate activities in early on what we called workforce preparedness, which was, again, math, science, engineering, helping to get better workforce or better employees that are trained and skilled in the areas we saw coming, particularly at that time, things like computer science and digital platforms, those types of disciplines. And so my involvement was working with groups then, and that has evolved to this area of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, which work together to create not only a technological foundation, but also plays off on this analogy of STEM being core, right? Being critical and foundational. And so that's what my work has been, is it's always been involved in things that tie back to the more technical areas that we talk about when we think of STEM disciplines.
Well, it certainly seems to be prevalent in our education system these days. I mean, we have STEM magnets and STEM curriculums, and I mean, it's sort of portrayed as a good thing. What are the goals of STEM? Why do we have it?
Well, I think you're exactly right. It's a great thing, and it's because it has helped organizations, businesses, community groups that have been involved in workforce preparedness and helping prepare not only just workforce, but people's society for a more digital, a more technical world. It's helped them organize that involvement, organize their engagement for business and for community groups to work together. And that's what STEM does. STEM has really taken those disparate efforts in the past and put them in a more structured way to deal with it and to engage. And so that's what we're seeing now. And one of the big focuses around STEM is actually recognizing the interconnectivity of these different disciplines, how they work together. So it's not just become better at math or better at science, but really understand and appreciate how they interact and work together. And that, in fact, enhances each individual component of STEM. So it's been really very beneficial for businesses and for society.
It's interesting, having worked in the arts for a number of years. I remember it's been several years ago where all of the arts people and the arts teachers and the artists, kind of felt they were being left behind by the STEM juggernaut moving forward, and so they've been pushing to insert an A into STEM and rename it as STEAM. But I think that the idea is that you're interrelating the arts with science and technology and math. But it sounds like you're saying they're two different things.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. I think we were running the risk, while we were getting more efficient at the technical education and the integration and support for that, we were running the risk of leaving the arts and humanities and the more creative areas really back where we were with on the technical side, right? More disparate involvement, disparate efforts. Somebody had an interest, the business had an interest and would support it, but it wasn't integrated the way we saw STEM. And I think other organizations, STEM organizations, recognize that. And so they've started to pull in arts and call it STEAM and integrate STEAM in it, which I think is a wonderful first step, right? It's a great idea because we don't want to leave the arts and the other creative areas alone or behind. The problem, though, is because we're moving into this technical area with a more different disciplined approach to these technologies and these curriculum, we sort of inadvertently are starting to push the arts into that way of thinking as well. And so the arts become more about graphic design, about, how do things look, not going back to what I said earlier, how do we take how things look and completely change it? How do we take things and think about it for other values besides just the efficiency or the predictability, let's say, that the engineering and science and all the STEM disciplines really cherish and look for?
So it seems like you're doing the arts a disservice by trying to push them into science, technology, or math. Where I think it is useful, and I think I would say that the STEAM folks would find it useful too. That creative thinking and creative problem solving and the ability to work on both sides of the brain, those things that arts training teach us, can help us be better mathematicians. I think Albert Einstein was as much a creative, artistic thinker than he was an engineer or mathematician. But that's sort of to make the scientists and the mathematicians and the engineers better at what they do. What the initiative you're working with that we're now going to reveal and talk to is actually about helping to make artists more successful and the creatives more successful. Am I describing that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we've learned from STEM, and you're right. We need the arts to be a part of the STEM effort. There's no doubt about it. The creativity and innovation that comes from the artistic side and creative thinkers is something we want to pull into STEM. But the STEM disciplines at their core are about efficiency, predictability, reliability. These are things that create the right foundation, but they also limit the real value and capacity that the artists and creatives can deliver. Because really, when you think about the areas that we look for from creatives and artists and that, we're talking about things like innovation, right? Imagination, excitement, things that go beyond the more traditional, predictable world. And so that's the risk we run, is that we're abandoning that part of it rather than fostering and encouraging it. So what we want to do is approach it where we're taking that same commitment to these disciplines, recognizing that they are co-equal, but they really address different things. And by focusing on each separately, rather than trying to force them into a single model, we actually get the benefit of both.
I mean, I'm perfectly fine with innovative and creative colors on the inside of the airplane, but I would actually prefer that the engines and the landing gear be really boring. I don't really want much outside the box thinking when you're talking about
right.
the workings of the airplane.
Right, but so too when you think about your your technological platform, your social media platform or whatever, you don't want that to be designed by just the engineers, right? That's the key. You want them to take the first stab at it, but you want that whole usability and just visibility, the look, the feel, all of that. Right. You really want that to come from the creatives. And again, I want to be careful. That's just talking about technology, which does start to play in the STEAM area, but we don't want the rest of the world to look like it was built and designed by engineers and mathematicians, right? That's the key. Right. We want them to have a part, but not the only part.
So tell us about this new project you're working on.
Well, as we thought about STEM and what it brought to the table, and also just the cleverness of the acronym STEM, as I say, is this notion of being foundational. We thought that if we're looking for something that's co-equal and equally valuable but contributes in a different way, we really need to think about a different model. And that led us to this idea that, well, just as you have for a plant stem, you also have the leaf, right? And the leaf provides a very valuable and important component as well to the plant. It provides, the nourishment, it captures the water, it enables photosynthesis. But not only is it in helping the plant and making the plant better, but it's also providing shade, right? It's also cleaning up the air that we breathe. And it provides a beauty and a look to the plant beyond just the stem that creates a value outside of the plant itself. And so we thought that's really what we're talking about when we talk about the humanities and talk about the arts and what they contribute to our life beyond the key, important, critical components that STEM brings. And so we thought, what if we were to talk about these two together in equal but separate ways and then start to address them that way? And so we put together a video that we thought starts to convey this idea a little bit, that hopefully helps people understand what we mean when we say they're equal but separate in terms of their importance and their value and contribution to society.
Well, let's take a look at it.
Okay.
At AIR4arts, we recognize the importance of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM, as being fundamental to human advancement. Nature teaches us, however, that a plant requires its stem and its foliage to truly thrive. Societies, too, need more than math and science to nourish the human spirit. The creativity generated through literature, entertainment, art and fashion, or LEAF, provides this equilibrium essential to holistic growth. AIR4arts is leading community-wide efforts to view LEAF curricula through a technological lens and with an entrepreneurial mindset. By harnessing digital platforms for creative exploration, we add imagination, inspiration, and whimsy to our lives and wonder to our world.
Well, that is just fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing it, and it really kind of helps it make much more sense about how the stem and the leaf work together. I mean, I love the analogy of the trees, that the trees are beautiful and they improve our home values and they give us places for refuge and for animals to have refuge, but yet they're also super important in creating oxygen for the planet and cleaning our air. So they're both a really functional thing and a really beautiful thing. So is this how you see the stem and the leaf working together?
Absolutely. And that's why, just as we talk about STEM being science, technology, engineering, and math, we wanted LEAF to capture a broader range of the arts and creative world and humanities, right? So we said literature, entertainment, which really we view as the performing arts, the arts, which we're really thinking about more the visual arts, and then fashion, which increasingly is becoming an important part of our society, who we are, and the integration of expression and business development for creatives when they think about how it spills over, not just from their talent, but onto the fashion component as well, because that impacts society so much. So we thought this is a perfect way to capture the idea of LEAF, of this area, of these components. And again, we go back to the idea that just as the leaves on a plant nourish the plant, we think these areas, these disciplines nourish our soul.
And they sort of go hand in hand. They're yin and yang, or left hand, right hand, or left brain, right brain. Now you also see LEAF as a sort of mentoring and training and professional development rubric or philosophy. How does that fit in?
Absolutely. Well, just as we've seen with STEM, again, a great model. And what we've seen with it is real focus around not just the technologies, but making STEM a part of your career. How do we take these STEM technologies and turn it into businesses, into careers, professions? And so we've seen things where there's a lot of focus around more entrepreneurial skills development, entrepreneurial thinking, and including better understanding of digital technologies, technology platforms, and how they can be leveraged. It's a perfect fit for STEM. It also, we believe, is a perfect fit for LEAF. It's just a little bit different because, again, we're talking about maybe individuals that don't think of entrepreneurial business or business skills as being an important part of what they do, but it does become an important part of what they do if they're going to have a career in this area, or more importantly, if they're going to have a business around this, right? And so we're not talking about MBA level understanding, but we are talking about enough understanding about entrepreneurial skills and business skills that allow you to take your interest and your talents from a passion to a business, right? And from an interest into a career. And so that's really what we're talking about at AIR4arts, the next level of innovation for artists and creatives, using the entrepreneurial model that we see and combining it with an understanding of how to leverage digital technical platforms, right? And participate in the digital economy, which increasingly is becoming important for artists and creatives, particularly with things like NFTs, non-fungible tokens, and those sorts of things where we're capturing art that we're creating digitally and allowing it to be recognized, and the artists and the creatives to be rewarded for their creativity and their talents in a world that allows for easy replication. So those are the types of things that we're pursuing at AIR4arts as we really pioneer this new way to think about it and this new way to approach it by working and partnering with our partners on the STEM side. This isn't go it alone. This is all about a partnership that recognizes the value of the work that's being done on STEM, but also acknowledges that we can't use that identical approach. We need to borrow from it and create our own approach that meets the needs of a different audience, creatives and artists, and those that have a more creative and innovative way to think about the world and our role in it.
I didn't have this in my notes, but I was just thinking about what you're saying, and what came to mind is the difference between traditional elementary school curriculums and the Montessori method, which is a different way of thinking about how you teach and how children learn. It seems to be it kind of resonates with what you're saying here, that teaching STEM and engineers is one way of teaching, but teaching LEAF it's another method of giving artists the training and mentoring and career skills that they need.
Right. Well, I absolutely think it's a different way in many respects, similar to the analogy you used of traditional education in Montessori. But I also think that we're also talking about not just a different way of doing it, but different types of outcomes that we want them to have. For entrepreneurs on the STEM side, it's pretty clear we're thinking about technological innovations, right, that we can put in there. On the LEAF side, we really don't exactly know what does success look like. It may not be $1 billion company, right? But so we're talking about a whole new way of defining success, of defining advancement, and acknowledging that that's great, that that's fine, that you shouldn't abandon that because it doesn't lead to $1 billion company. But instead, if you want to pursue that, you can't just abandon all rules around business and around careers and advancement. You need to adopt them. You need to apply them to some extent, but let's find a new way to help guide the direction we want to go.
So what are the next steps in developing this idea? Where are you currently, and where are you heading with this?
Sure. Well, at AIR4arts, we've got a number of initiatives that we're looking at to help move this forward. One is first starting to define this area around not the skills and talent development and training that artists get, because there's plenty of organizations that can help them with that. But we're talking about what about on the business side, the entrepreneurial skills of sales, marketing, finance, accounting, logistics, operations, things that I think most artists would tell you that has nothing to do with them, and say, well, maybe it doesn't, but in your mind, but it actually does if you want to create a business and a career. And so help them understand that, again, without becoming an MBA, right? That's part of it. We need to put that together, what that curriculum looks like, or at least begin to shape it. And that involves a partnership with different business groups and organizations in the community to help us put that business skills framework, we'll call it, together. Then the next step is we want to identify who's already providing resources that can support that framework. And this, again, goes back to educational institutions in the community, but also nonprofits and other organizations that may be doing this, again, out of necessity, because what we're talking about isn't something that's completely brand new in terms of the realization. It's really the structure, the organization, and the discipline around this LEAF initiative that we're talking about, putting more structure to it rather than having it be more haphazard, let's say. So that's the other part of it, helping to identify those groups, putting more structure into the resources that are available. And then the third area, most importantly, is bringing this to the artist and creative community, right? And here we're talking about not only emerging artists, but also established artists that may be out there, but again, finding a way to give them education, information, access to resources. And important in this is not just the curriculum and awareness and some training, but also what we're talking about is mentorship. And this can be individual mentorship or group mentorship, which we think in an entrepreneurial world is becoming more common, where you're a team and you're working and talking about your plans, even though they're on maybe individual or separate businesses or initiatives, there's still certain commonalities. And so we want to help pull those together as well. And I think finally, the most important thing is we want to introduce this idea of having essentially a business plan, maybe not a formal business plan that you would have and see for, a billion-dollar company or a startup, but at least that thinking of a game plan with some real structure around it, an understanding of what it takes to put this together, and then access to people and resources that can help you achieve that on an ongoing basis. So not just expose people to the idea, but then help them continue to resource that and move along to refine and achieve their business plan.
So, I mean, I'm thinking about companies that have come in and guided the curriculums of engineering school in either high school or in college. So, I mean, what you're saying is actually curriculum based. This is part of the curriculum of an art school, of a painter, of a musician.
Absolutely. In fact, David, I think you have nailed what I think is the core value and opportunity of LEAF, which is businesses understand science, technology, engineering, and math. And they know that they can come in, businesses that is core part of what they do, get involved in educational groups to help foster that. Well, what about businesses that are involved in literature and entertainment and visual arts, right? And fashion. These businesses, while they support STEM, and that's great, we're saying, help us define how we can have LEAF help you. The businesses that are supporting STEM, it's very clear they understand how that's going to help them, and that's great. Again, I applaud that because they've pulled together what was before a lot of various disparate efforts. In this case, let's come together. Let's recognize that not only by focusing on an area like literature or entertainment, that's going to benefit businesses, but really by looking and talking about them together as a group, we're going to improve all of them. Fashion's going to improve from what's being done, not only in entertainment, but I think in the visual arts and probably literature. And certainly the entertainment, the performing arts are going to improve from both anything in literature and fashion as well as visual arts. So again, it's this idea of recognizing and understanding. By addressing this, we are moving into a bold new world, if you will, but we're not doing it alone. We're going in with a model that we know works. We're going in with organizations that we know believe and are passionate about the objectives of this. And we're really going in with, we hope, a methodology to begin that process, knowing that there really is no downside to this. At worst, we end up where we're at, but really at best, we think we end up with a whole new generation of artists and creatives that start at an early age with an idea, a vision about their career, their business, and where they want to take their talents, and know that they're not having to compromise. They're not having to sacrifice, success or career or family, because this is, something that only the most talented get to do. We can help them all achieve their dream at whatever level it is.
So who else needs to be at the table to get this moving?
Well, we're helping to organize a conference to address exactly that. But some early discussions and thinking are certainly chambers of commerce and economic development organizations that are supporting STEM. We need them to be a part of this effort. Nonprofit organizations that are working with creatives and artists that are looking for a way to help provide and pull together different resources for a more holistic approach to it. Educational institutions are not only a no-brainer, but they're going to provide a lot of the guidance around how we take these ideas and structure it into a more effective way to deliver this. And then finally, I think we need the business community to step up. Again, I've been involved in philanthropic and charitable efforts for several decades, and I understand that there's a role that businesses play in just giving to the community. This is an opportunity for them to not only give, but to help drive improvement and help drive that nourishing of our souls that we talked about. And in doing so, provide a whole new set of careers and opportunity for students that otherwise are going to abandon them because they just don't have a good, clear path going forward.
It really does seem to be a win-win for both the stem and the leaf for the whole tree, for the whole plant.
Exactly. And that's why we love that analogy, right? Is it's about society. We're not trying to say one or the other matters more, because you can't have one without the other.
Right.
What we don't want to do is have a world filled with a lot of stem-looking plants.
Uh-huh. Any final words or final thoughts about Leaf and where it's going, and how people can get involved if they're interested in finding out more?
Absolutely. I think the first step is to contact AIR4arts. We're the ones that are really driving this. So AIR4arts.com is a place to go. The second thing is to not only look at our site, see what's happening there, but reach out, contact us, join us, right? We welcome your efforts and your participation. This isn't something where we're saying, we've got the program, here it is, here's your role. This is a collaboration. This is a voyage. And what we're saying is, help us prepare for that. We are looking for people that can contribute. And most importantly, we're looking for people that can help evangelize this philosophy and this approach, because we think it's going to provide a lot of not only opportunity, but really a lot of great outcomes for society and for, our creative life going forward.
Yeah, I think it has the potential to be very just revolutionary. Would not be too strong of a word. So thank you so much for your efforts on this, and for AIR4arts efforts on this. I think it's very, very, usually we hear stories about artists doing exciting work, but this is really foundational to really everything we do. So thank you for your time today, and for your work on this. So as you probably know, we always wrap up our interviews with our top 10 short lightning round questions.
Okay.
So I'll just ask you either or questions, or the first thing that comes to your mind, and we'll go from there. Don't think too much. So question number 1, Eiffel Tower or Empire State?
Eiffel Tower. I'm too much of a romantic.
Number 2, Elvis or the Beatles?
Elvis.
Number 3, what is currently on your nightstand?
Well, it's interesting. I just took a trip and I read The Mafia, or The Bomber Mafia by Malcolm Gladwell, just on the flight. Very interesting, fascinating. And I think it ties into what we're talking about here, about people with a vision and how you really need to stick with it in spite of a lot of adversity in order to achieve it. And fascinating read.
Number 4, San Francisco or New York City?
San Francisco.
Number 5, the last TV show or series that you binge watched?
Oh, yeah. It's funny. I watch a wide variety of shows, but I would have to say I'm partial towards Korean TV shows that come out that are translated into English. And I think the last one I watched was one called Move to Heaven, which sounds weird. It's more of a mystery and science thing, but it was a great TV show. A little quirky, but that's just me.
All right. Number 6, sunny beach or snowy mountainside?
I'm a Utah boy at heart, but I have to tell you, I love the beach. I think I could stay at the beach for year round, so I have to go with beach.
Number 7, craft cocktail or craft beer?
Craft cocktail.
Number 8, the one company you wish you had gotten in on the ground floor of?
Wow. You know what? Before I used to think about this in terms of making money, but I'll tell you, I think in terms of just career satisfaction, I would love to have been involved in Southwest Airlines. Just seeing what they did and how they created a whole different way of world around flight that involves employees and makes them a more important, a central part of it.
Yeah.
I would love to have been part of that and seen how that developed.
Revolutionized the industry, absolutely.
Right.
Number 9, your favorite comfort food?
Wow. Popcorn, I have to say, popcorn. Yeah.
And number 10, the one book everyone should read at least once in their lives.
So again, going back to my technical side and maybe my business roots, The Art of War. I think The Art of War applies not only in business, it applies in life in general. And I think it's something that I would encourage any creatives and artists that are going to pursue a career or profession. It's worth reading just to understand, how to better negotiate and how to get what you need and what you want.
Well, again, thank you so much for your time today and for the work you're doing for AIR4arts. Our guest, Tony Hurtado. And we'll turn it back to David and Susan.
Thank you, both of you. Fascinating conversation. Truly, David and Tony brought to light how much we are excited about this new paradigm and what it's going to do. LEAF will certainly make, we believe, an impression. And Tony, your creation is one that is amazing, and we want to thank you for that. And excited to hear also, on a side note, some of your favorite places and spots, by the way, on those top 10, and including The Art of War. We're going to put that on definitely the reference list for all of our creatives. Yes. Thank you so much, both of you, for being here today.
Thank you, Susan. And like you, I absolutely believe that this presentation is going to change the paradigm in the discussion of science and humanities. Tony, thank you very much for your creation and for your wonderful explanation of it here today. Thank you for joining us today. Be sure and check our website, air4arts.org, for information about next month's guest. Have a terrific week.